Hello, fellow friends, and welcome to my inaugural episode, Go with the Gods. It's a podcast on Hellenic polytheism, paganism, and life stories that happen to me that I like to share with you guys. And I hope you guys enjoy these episodes. And this first one's going to kind of be a biography episode because 2019 is a very special year. 2019 marked the year that it's been 10 years since I started paganism. And I discovered it all those years ago in 2009. So I'm going to explain how I started off in one religion, very much so, became pagan, and in 10 years' time since then, I came to peace with who I truly am and became openly what I am. So to begin my story, I have to give a little bit of a family history. My grandfather was a pastor, my dad was a pastor, so I come from a line of preachers in my family. And for a while, I thought that was going to be my calling as well. We always went to church every Wednesday and Sunday, and when I was raised in a very Christian home, but it wasn't always the strictest house you've ever heard of or could imagine. I was still able to listen to secular radio, but no cursing or taking the Lord's name in vain. It was that kind of thing. But saying words like freaking or even but got you the belt. So it was kind of strict, but that was about as hard as it got. So even though they were Christians, I remember the stories of my grandparents who would get visions from the future. And they would say that God gave them visions and would tell them what would happen next. And they must have had a pretty good track record when it came to that kind of thing, since when they told people about their dreams, others would pay attention and listen. So being a Christian, they wouldn't dare think of themselves of having psychic ability or calling themselves psychic. You know, it's kind of funny. You can say that you saw the future as a vision from God, but as soon as you say you had a vision and you don't tag God in it, it suddenly becomes sinful and a shameful thing to say. Personally, I would have a few, quote, paranormal experiences myself. I remember seeing the ghost of my grandfather standing outside of our home not long after he passed away. I remember him standing on the hill of our driveway just looking at me. At the time, I was around 6 years old, so I didn't fully grasp what was going on. I just remember running to him, but him turning away as like he didn't hear me, and he started walking down to his old house, to the lower floor of the home where he used to live. When I got to the house, no one was there. So scared, I did like any other kid or even adult would do. I ran home and I wanted my mommy. Another time that's interesting occurred to me in my adult life is that I spent a night with a family who happened to be witches. So during the night, I had an odd feeling of being watched. And I even had a dream that night of a stranger I had never met just talking to me. In the morning, I told my friends whose house I was staying in about that dream, and they didn't even seem shocked or scared at all. As I described who visited me in the dream and what he looked like, they told me that he was actually a dear friend of theirs that had passed away and always liked to hang around the house. Many people had had that dream. So that was an interesting experience, to say the least. So probably being raised the way I was, I have always been a very spiritual person and very religious, even through my teen years, and in my early adult life. When I started to become disillusioned by some of the things with the beliefs I grew up with, that I couldn't do anything without feeling guilt, that's when I just became more spiritual than actually, quote unquote, a Christian. Just not really having a home. In school, I made friends with everyone. I had religious friends, non-religious friends, Christians, non-Christian friends. I even had a few Wiccan friends. But little did I know that would play a huge part in my life later on. Growing up, the only thing I knew about witches was like everyone else, what we saw on TV. There were a couple of times when the subject of witches came up in the discussion at my home, and I remember my mom telling me of how, if she wasn't so afraid of going to hell, that she would be a witch in life. That must have struck a chord with me, since I still remember that conversation many, many years later. I also remember hearing how we should always be afraid on Halloween because that's when the witches are at the height of their power. So those are the couple of things I do remember. that I look back on and I kind of laugh. So now we fast forward to 2009, and I don't remember 100% the circumstances, but that was the year that would begin to change my life and forever. Like I said, I was spiritual. I was a quote unquote Christian, meaning that I still believed in all that, but I didn't go to church and pray or anything like that. I was a couch potato Christian, I guess you could say. It was somewhere around this time, 10 years ago, July 2009, that I met someone online who would eventually become my girlfriend. It was around the third date that I remember her telling me that she was a witch. Instead of scaring me away, I found that intriguing. I eventually moved in with her and learned a few things. I was so, for the lack of a better term, brainwashed by my raising that it took me a long time to comprehend that maybe there are other religions out there that are the true religion. And the way I was raised, it took my brain a long time to accept that there were other gods out there as well. It was October 2009, while I was with her, that I went outside into the woods behind the house we were staying at, and I self-dedicated to the God and gods. I wasn't 100% sure on who, but I did nonetheless. Something about it spoke to me. I could experience the gods without the added package of guilt. So me and my girlfriend broke up a few months later, but that spiritual lesson still stuck with me and stayed with me. While we were dating, I happened to pick up a little book you may have heard of called Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by Scott Cunningham. I didn't really start reading it fully until the relationship had ended. I decided to give it a shot, and it opened up a world to me, even more so than that I had never known before. Everything in that book spoke to me, and it just seemed right. And it was about a month or so later, being solo, that I went to a pagan website called Pagan Space, back when MySpace was popular, you know. And there I discovered a group of local witches in my area. I reached out to the local group, and they reached back, and I took a step of faith and went to meet them, and ended up staying in that coven for probably almost a year, I'd say. Always learning and growing even more. Circumstances made my relationship with that group come to an end, but I still never forget the experience I had with them and the things that I learned and still carry with me even to this day. During this time, my mom found out about my conversion. While I was away at the store or at work, Mom discovered my altar in my room, and after breaking up with the previous said girlfriend, I moved back in with my parents. So you guys will know that I do not keep my altars hidden, even back then. So needless to say, being raised how it was, she wasn't too happy about it. But there is a happy ending though. I was able to talk things over with Mom, and we patched things up in any misconceptions or fears the other may have had. So the thing to remember if you encounter a family member or a friend who discovers your religion, just keep calm and have an intellectual conversation with them. Your religion and your spirituality is just as valid as theirs. I know that things are not black and white. Sometimes intellectual conversations aren't in the cards, but if that opportunity arises, you definitely need to take advantage of that. So I was once again solo with no coven, but I continued to study alone, praying to the god and goddess, reading and watching as many videos on the subject I could devour, a pastime that I really enjoy. And then fate happened to step in, and I met through Facebook and Witchfox another coven that was more organized and traditional than the prior. I can't even begin to tell you how much I learned from them. Then the time came that I no longer felt spiritually home there, so you start to notice a pattern. The reason being that I came to the realization that I'm not a witch. Even when I was Wiccan, it was the spiritual aspect of the religion that was drawn to. It wasn't really the witchcraft. So there was, however, a goddess of witchcraft that I became very close with that led me to where I am today, and her name is Hecate. So being solo again, it was by chance that I was shopping at a local thrift store, and even more interesting, this particular thrift store was selling Greek vases. Something right there and then hit me. It brought me back to a time when I was a kid and I loved Greek mythology. I loved it so much that there was a contest in school that you could submit a story to and possibly win state recognition for your story. No, I didn't win the contest. It's not that happy of an ending, but the story I submitted was based on Greek mythology. I don't really remember how it ended, but the story was about Zeus and Hera creating a man. Blue eyes from the ocean, brown hair from a bark of a tree. You know, the Greek gods. And I wondered, did people still worship the Greek gods in the 21st century? It wasn't long after that when I found a video on YouTube called something like, quote, The Hellenic View of Hecate. It was a fascinating interview, and it made me want to research and know more about the Hellenic pagan view of things. And as time passed, and with my love of the gods and studies, and here we are today. So I do have a pretty lengthy past, but after all, it has been a short summary of 10 years worth of a journey. So where am I now? I'm growing even more in my relationship with the gods, still learning every day, praying and seeking, reading everything I can, and watching YouTube videos. And I'm completely out with everyone, if you haven't guessed. My family knows for the most part, and I'm open at work. It's not like I preach the gospel of Apollo or anything like that, but my computer wallpaper will have gods on them sometimes, and my vest has said Apollo across it. So, yeah. And I also carry the Homeric hymn of Apollo in my pocket, so yeah, I'm open. And why shouldn't I be? I mean, I'm proud of who I am and what I am. As I've said before, my spirituality is just as valid as anyone else's. I respect their beliefs, and I want people to respect mine. Simple as that. Life's too short to be afraid of being who you truly are. That goes for anything and everything in your life. I live it out there because I like it, and it makes me so happy. It just overflows into everyday life. And that's the short summary of where I'm at right now, guys. And I'll talk to you later. I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode. And I'll see you down the road. Go with the gods, guys. Go with the gods, guys. Bye.